Alien Romulus, for all its jump scares, body horror, and pure facehugger and xenomorph creep, is simply a shadow of greater films, or at least that's what it's attempting to be. It makes no bones about it. It's so in your face with the odes to the prior films that it simply should be called Alien Fan Service. There are so many fan service callbacks that one can't help but feel that the director, Fede Alvarez, has no faith in his ability to tell a compelling original story. I know fan service callbacks are Hollywood's current phase du jour, but I am finding them more and more grating when watching these franchise sequels. Now, Romulus isn't necessarily a bad film. It has visual appeal and a tense atmosphere that makes it somewhat entertaining, but it is so beholden to making the fanboys in the audience pitch a nostalgia boner that it falls far short of the films it is trying so hard to emulate. Now, the story centers on a group of mining colony youths led by Kaylee Spaney's Rain Carradine, Ben Johnson's Andy the Android, and is rounded out by Aileen Wu as Navarro, Archie Renault as Tyler, Spike Furn as Bjorn, and Isabella Merced as Kay, who is in the first months of a pregnancy, which we know is going to come into play. Now, all of our characters appear to have grown up on a completely sunless mining colony run by our franchise favorite villainous corporation, Weyland Yutani. Are there seriously no other companies in the space exploration mining business? Apparently not in this horror universe. Our group of youth seem to be employed as miners by Weyland and appear to have inherited their parents' mining contracts, which appear to make them all but slaves in name to Weyland Yutani, making them futuristic indentured servants in the wild frontier of space. This aspect of the story is in some ways more frightening than the xenomorphs. I mean, really, in the depths of space, far away from the ever-present eyes of Earth's regulatory apparatus, what's to say a company wouldn't take advantage of its human workforce and exploit them till they drop dead from the poisonous air they breathe in the mines, which appears to have been the fate of Spaney's parents. Yes, corporate malfeasance is front and center as our movie introduces our main characters, and so is the bleakness of their life on this mining planet, where the sun shines 0 days a year. Our characters wish to escape their mining hellscape to a planet that at least has a sun. Unfortunately, that planet is 9 years away from their mining colony, so in order to travel to their plausible sun-filled paradise without having to age 9 years, they have to fly into space and board a derelict Weyland Yutani research facility, passing through the orbit of their mining planet, and salvage working cryogenic units so that they can make the voyage to their new planet while in cryosleep. Our group boards the research facility only to find it filled with facehuggers and eventually xenomorphs. The facehuggers are able to impregnate Aileen Wu's character, and she violently gives birth to a xenomorph, and chaos ensues for our group of intrepid paradise seekers. Now, as I stated, the film is a fan service wet dream. Here are just some of the blatant callbacks to prior films. The appearance of an Ian Holmes Ash-like android with horrible CGI, might I add, but with a relatively big role in the story. A pregnant birth of a Prometheus Alien 4-style xenomorph human hybrid, the get away from her you bitch line, the main character throwing acid at the ship hull to create a vacuum suction into space, a la Alien 4, and both happen when our main character is fighting a human xenomorph hybrid. The main character shooting a bunch of xenomorphs as we see her gun ammo count go down, Ash saying "you have my sympathies" line, the main protagonist fighting in her undies because she was about to go into cryosleep. Now, these are just some of the blatant ones I noticed. I'm sure there were many more I completely missed or just can't remember, but the overall feeling you get is that you are not watching anything original or even attempting to be original, and this takes you out of the film, or at least it did for me. For all the criticism of Alien 3 and 4, those are relatively original films, and don't go out of their way to coddle the fan base with pure fan service. I, for one, am tired of fan service and want something original. Granted, I'll give you that it is hard to be original in a franchise 7 films deep. Yes, I'm including Prometheus and Covenant as part of the Alien franchise, and no, I am not including the Predator vs. Alien films. But at least Romulus let Ripley rest in peace and brought in a whole new cast of characters. The Ash reappearance, which technically is an Ash, but the same model of android, seems simply to appear more for exposition to bring our characters up to speed with the audience's knowledge. So we as the audience don't have to think to ourselves, "Don't do that, they bleed acid," because our characters have now been fully armed with that knowledge courtesy of Ash. In addition, Ash is a symbolic bad angel on Andy the android's shoulder, who goes semi-bad when he receives an update to his core directive programming. Now, Fede Alvarez has a masterful hand when it comes to visuals, but it's his character development and storytelling ability that keep his films from truly transcending from good to great. Make no mistake, Alvarez is no hack, but he's more of a technician than a storyteller, and it is his technical abilities that make for a good movie, but not a great movie. Alvarez's biggest weakness is his character development and interactions. His bland characters and bland interactions pale in comparison to Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. In particular, it was Cameron's ability to craft unique characters and have those characters bounce off each other that added depth to his story. The contrast in character personality types in Aliens makes for an interesting character interaction dynamic when the shit hits the fan. You're interested in almost all of Cameron's characters. Each seem to have a depth that is greater than the screen time they are given, and this speaks to Cameron's character development prowess, which drives his story forward. For Cameron's Aliens, the indifference of many of the characters, which is exemplified by their jokes and ribbing, is confronted when they are put to the test by the xenomorph colony. The indifferent coolness of the Marines contrasts with Ripley's seriousness and Burke's politician-like good guy mask, and require the audience to reframe their position on each character as those characters go through their story arc. The reframing makes the film fresh and compelling because you never quite know what is coming next for each character, and Cameron does this with minimal screen time for some characters. Alien Romulus has none of that. The characters don't seem to have nearly as much depth as the characters in prior Alien films, and I found myself not caring for almost all the characters with the exception of maybe Spaney and Johnson's character, who are our two leads. Spaney is much more soft-edged than Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, and if the film were not making so many odes to Weaver's prior Alien movies, this wouldn't be such a big deal. But the film is what it is, a fan service callback palooza, and that invites the viewer to compare Spaney with Weaver, and the comparison leaves you wishing Spaney's character was Weaver's Ripley. Now, the reasoning for Spaney's softer character is that it helps to foster a goodwill in the audience towards her relationship with her android brother, Andy. Andy's introduction as a character casts him as a sort of android simpleton, whom the audience can't help but think poses no threat in this simpleton persona. But if you've seen any of the other movies in this franchise, you know damn well Johnson's Andy is going to get up to some shenanigans. However, when Andy's character does turn, all thanks to a program update via Weyland Corp, his seemingly questionable actions do not have the seemingly evil intent of prior androids from the Alien franchise, and one can't help but feel this is to keep Andy on the audience's good side, which is accomplished. Now, while watching the film, I felt it was obvious the film was not going to make Andy a bad guy. He would have some form of redemption. Andy seems to be able to fight his programming in some capacity, which allows him to be brought back into the fold as a good guy android. By my viewing, this was completely predictable, and I never felt like Andy was any danger to other characters, which made his role less compelling and the story more bland. I felt Alvarez would have been better served in making Andy a truly bad android. But make no mistake, this would have been a risk if it were not done carefully by Alvarez, as it would risk turning the audience against the film's choices. But hey, at least Alvarez gave us the first simple Jack android of the Alien franchise universe. Now, outside of facehugger and xenomorph mayhem, the film spends a lot of time on Spaney and Johnson's relationship, and both actors do well with what they are given. However, the story and plot points they are given don't quite live up to their performances, and all the fan service distracts from both the story and their performances. There are some interesting set pieces, albeit completely eye-rolling, yeah right moments, particularly one where Spaney and Johnson have to navigate a zero-gravity voyage through a xenomorph acid bloodbath that floats all around them down a corridor they must cross to get to their ship. The whole process of them navigating through this floating acid bath without getting melted is ludicrous, but not in a way that makes you laugh, but rather go, that's just bullshit. Now, the third act of the film treads completely in callback territory, with Isabella Merced's character injecting Prometheus' creator black goo into herself under the mistaken impression it will help her heal from xenomorph-induced wound, only to have the goo work its magic on her unborn child. I mean, you knew her pregnancy was going to play a major part. You just weren't sure how. Now, Alvarez is telegraphing his story to the audience in advance. Now, Merced's character gives premature birth to our final xenomorph-human hybrid protagonist, who kills Merced off-screen and has a final showdown with Spaney's character, where she uses its fetal afterbirth acid to burn a hole into the hull of the ship and blast the hybrid alien into space, though the hybrid hangs on and has one last confrontation with Spaney before falling into space to its presumed death. Now, this xenomorph-human hybrid has been done before in the Alien franchise, and the visual comparison in actual xenomorph just does not hold up. If anything, the hybrid looks like a standard horror movie human-mutant hybrid that I've seen in a million other movies, with no lasting impression beyond, seen that before, meh. The true stars of the Alien franchise are the xenomorphs, and they should be front and center in any final battle. Now, I know right now you're yelling at me, but that's been done a million times already. Yeah, because it works. This hybrid BS doesn't work and makes the ending of Romulus a bit wacky and schlocky. Perhaps that's what you want, but not me. I want to be awed by a badass xenomorph battle that has suspense and a bit of wit to it. Now, as I said earlier, I think Alvarez is a master technician, and it's his technical abilities that paint a nice-looking picture. Granted, a bit gloomy and dark, but there is an atmosphere to the film, which does evoke a certain sense of dread, and Alvarez does this well, though I thought there were too many jump scares that had no consequences behind them. As an example, in the original Alien movie, when Tom Skerritt's Dallas meets his demise at the hands of a xenomorph in a cramped air duct, there's a suspenseful build-up where you hear characters trying to help Skerritt, and then finally he turns his flashlight down a section of the air duct he's in, and boom! There stands a xenomorph that reaches out for him, and the scene ends. This scare had a great build-up, and in my opinion is a masterclass in ratcheting up the tension and delivering a death blow that shakes the audience. Alvarez crafts no similar scenes in Romulus where the tension builds and explodes in a scene that has consequence. His closest attempt is a scene that introduces the facehuggers coming out of cryosleep and attacking our characters in an attempt to facehug one of them. But the consequence of one facehugger accomplishing its mission, while visually cool, seems to have less impact than Dallas's death in the original film. The sequel to the original film, Aliens, has many such tension builders, such as its cooling system gunfight set piece, which builds tension and releases it in complete bedlam. And there are consequences as characters die. You're not sure who's going to die, and there are some characters whom you have become attached to because of their funny banter and quirky characteristics, and yet they still die, leaving you with a distinct feeling that outside of Ripley and Newt, nobody is safe. Now, another issue is that neither Alien or Aliens telegraphs their characters as assholes who you're hoping get killed, but Romulus does this in the form of Spike Fern's character Bjorn, who antagonizes the audience with his mistreatment of Andy, the android. And sure enough, Fern's character gets his comeuppance, being killed in a gruesome manner. Alvarez doesn't seek to subvert audience expectations like Cameron did with Hudson's turn in Aliens, but rather reinforce them, with Alvarez telling us, hey, this guy's not a good guy, just look at the way he treats Andy. He'll get his comeuppance. This type of filmmaking where the director leads me by the hand has always bothered me, as it's just so safe and not interesting in any way. In conclusion, I wanted to like Alien Romulus. It's just that the constant fan service callbacks and uninteresting characters were not compelling enough to keep me glued to what I was watching. The floating acid bloodbath scene really took me out of the movie, and then the xenomorph human hybrid appearance made me realize I wasn't getting anything new. Nevertheless, thanks for listening to my first movie review on YouTube, and let me know what you think of Alien Romulus by commenting below.